Hello, welcome back to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Sprocket, West Kentucky, and KY Innovation. Welcome back to episode 257. We are in December, and we are starting to think about what's those end-of-year things that we need to do. You've probably heard me say in the past that personally, I get it. People make fun of me all the time, but I like to work jigsaw puzzles at Christmas time. And the reason I do it is that it's relaxing to me, not to everybody, but it's relaxing to me. And it allows me to reflect on the year and to think about the year ahead. What do I need to do differently? What new habits do I need to develop? What new routines do I need to develop? And what do I need to let go of from the past year? The reality is that we could all use that type of reflection. And particularly in cybersecurity, we want to do that. There's things that we need to do each year to make sure that we continue to stay safe. So I want to start talking through those. We'll look at stories of the last few years. We'll look at different things, or the last year, last several months, and kind of take that. What can we learn to apply to the new year to make us a little safer when it comes to cybersecurity? So I got 5 things I want us to think about today. First of all, let me share my window with you. That would help. But the first thing I want to talk about is conducting an end of year. Let me flop that around. There we go. An end of year risk and incident review. So what I mean by that is the role of cybersecurity in an organization is to manage risk. Everything is a risk. It could be a good risk, it could be a bad risk, but we want to manage risk, particularly if we're in cybersecurity. We're probably managing bad risk within a level of what we can tolerate as an organization. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways that we do that is we can review all the incidents of the past year, even the near misses, and think about the vulnerabilities, the recurring vulnerabilities that we see. Are there patterns in phishing? Are there misconfigurations? Are access control things need to change? All of those things we need to be reviewing on a regular basis. Many of us get busy and we don't think about it, so maybe we don't review it as often as we should. So at least the end of year can be that time when we review that. We need to update our risk register. We need to reprioritize the risk based on what we're seeing. I had a conversation with some students last week that were talking about risk. And I said, what keeps you up at night? Well, the risks that keep you up at night should be the risks that are the most important to address on your risk register. That they should be in alignment. If they're not, what's going on? Now, we also need to think about our risk register and what are the new threats that maybe we didn't have last year. We'll talk some about that later in the month. Or what changes have we seen in our business that also need to change what we're doing in our on our risk register. All those matter. So we got to think about that. Number 2, it builds off of what I just said. We need to align our cyber strategy and our budget with business priorities for the coming year. Those things that we are implementing in, we need to are trying to enact as a business, we need to make sure that our security posture and our security budget align with those priorities. I'll give you an example. Everybody is trying to figure out where AI fits right now. So let's say as a business, we're going to implement AI strategies. Do we have security controls in place to protect our assets as we implement AI? That brings on a whole new threat. We talk about AI a bunch on this podcast or on this series. And so what are we doing to address that? That's just one example. But what are those business priorities? What are those things that we're expecting? What do our security controls and tools and procedures, policies even match where our business growth is going to be, what our digital transformation plans are, what our new regulatory requirements. Frankly, there's a lot of regulatory requirements that are coming online that maybe we didn't have this time last year. What are we doing to address that? We got to make sure that we're there. And let me even build on that a little bit further with number 3, is that we need to review, refresh key policies, control, and governance documents. I tell people all the time, security is not a one-time thing. Let's do this thing once and then put it on the shelf and be done with it. We can't do that. That's not how security works. Every year, frankly, every quarter, every month even, but at least every year, we need to review our policies. What's our acceptable use? Has that changed? Has our password policy, our identity management policy changed? Incident response, has that changed? Frankly, after each incident, we should review and say, should we change something? But at a bare minimum, we should look at that on an annual basis. Vendor risk, that supply chain component is very real and a very real risk that we need to manage and consider. Remote work, AI usage, as I mentioned, we need to review all those things, all those policies, and frankly, who owns those policies and those changes on those controls or on those governance documents. And then finally, we need to refresh and to determine, does our alignment match up to the different frameworks that we have agreed to follow, we are internally following, or were we required to follow? Maybe we're required to follow some sort of HIPAA controls. Maybe we've agreed to follow the NIST, the cybersecurity framework. Maybe we're following the ISO 27000 series. Maybe we're following the CIS controls. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter as much as long as we're agreeing to kind of go along with that. If we haven't conducted our mandatory annual activities, then we need to make sure that we do that. So what am I talking about? Some regulatory frameworks require annual proof that we are conducting specific activities. So have we done that? Have we done the audits that we're required to do before the end of the year? Hopefully you have. I hope. If not, is there an audit? Is there an incident response test that we need to do, like a tabletop? Is there a business continuity disaster recovery test that we need to do? Are we reviewing our systems and privileged accounts? Are we doing a risk review for our suppliers? There's a lot of those things that we need to do. And then the last one is, have we done our security awareness training? I hope you've heard me say that's an ongoing thing, not a once a year thing. If we're going to build the culture in our organization on cybersecurity, then doing security awareness is something that's very important. And then finally, number 5 is strengthen our identity and access hygiene before the holidays. That's a mouthful. So what does that mean? We get sloppy in passwords. We get sloppy in a number of different things throughout the year. The problem is, as we've talked about over the last few weeks, December's a high-risk month. It's a high-risk month for 2 reasons. First of all, because what we've talked about on the last couple of weeks is that we're in a giving. We're in a holiday spirit. What can we do with the holiday spirit? We're in a giving. We're buying presents. We're thinking about all of these cool things. Also, you have staff out of the office. So if an account was compromised in your organization, then it could be longer before it is identified than it would be during a regular month. So, like in October, there's going to be more people in the office than in December. So there's going to be some of those pieces. Maybe your organization has more business at Christmas, so there's more seasonal contractors that are on board, and they are required to do more work. Well, you've got to onboard them, offboard them. All of that takes time. So we need to disable our unused accounts. We need to make sure that MFA, multi-factor authentication, is being used everywhere that it's supposed to be. Cloud, VPN, third-party tools everywhere. We need to review our emergency access accounts. So is there a backdoor administrative account in case everything else gets compromised? How do we get into our system? All of those things we need to think about. And then obviously part of that end of year planning is to identify vulnerabilities, update, patch those vulnerabilities before the end of the year. That so often happens, and that we need to think about that. All right. I've gone over on time a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that I went over a few of those things. We'll continue to talk about these end of year things over the next few weeks, but I wanted to make sure that I covered that today, because now is the time to do those annual reviews before we get too close to Christmas and we don't want to do anything. Anyway, thank you for joining in, and I'll see you back next week on 10 and 10. Thank you. Bye.